Alright, so these are the objectives you're expected to know about homeostasis. There are 6 objectives that we're going to cover today, all under the heading of homeostasis, which we know means what? Regulating the internal environment for stability, right? So internal balance. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about the endocrine system. Objective 1, it's composed of glands that secrete hormones that are transported by the blood. So let's talk about these glands and body tissues and what they mean. So, what they do. So the hypothalamus is a region in the brain that is actually going to control the functions of the endocrine system. The region of the brain controls the function. Okay. We've got the pineal gland, which is located behind the eyes and actually gets sensory input from the eyes, light, right? And it's what's set to determine your circadian rhythm. So it releases melatonin, which causes you to feel sleepy based on the light input it receives from your eyes. So your body has this set cycle of sleep and awake time, sleep and activity. And it's based on the ambient light. So the light signal gets transmitted through the eyes to the pineal gland, which secretes melatonin and causes you to feel sleepy when there's not much light. The pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is located in the head, and it has 2 main functions. One, it secretes ADH, which is anti-diuretic hormone. And this one we're going to learn a lot about when we talk about the kidneys and the role of water regulation of the kidneys. So ADH stands for anti-diuretic hormone, and it is going to have a direct impact on the collecting duct of the kidneys, the nephrons in the kidneys. So we'll learn more about that in the next one. It also, pituitary also makes endorphins. And endorphins deaden pain. So an example of that would be morphine, right? So you can think about like a war movie where someone, oh, I'm been shot, you need morphine, right? It deadens the pain. So endorphins and ADH are made in the pituitary gland. Alright, so that's the top 3 in the head. Questions about those 3? No? Okay. Let's talk parathyroid glands. The parathyroid glands secrete parathyroid hormone, which is responsible for controlling the calcium in your blood and your bones. We know that calcium is a key component in bones, and we know what's the condition that can affect you when you can get brittle bones as a result of a lack of calcium. Osteoporosis. Good. Okay. The thyroid gland is located further down the trunk from the parathyroid. The thyroid gland, actually it's wrapped in the parathyroid, but anyway, the thyroid gland is responsible for 2 things. Your metabolism, right? So you hear people talk about, oh, that person has such a high metabolism, they can eat whatever they want and they never gain any weight. So your metabolic rate is controlled in part by hormones. Let's see. Please give this to, oh, he's not here right now. He's at the Caesars. Okay. Alright, so, sorry about that disruption. So, thyroid gland responsible for 2 things, metabolic rate and body temperature. So, if your thyroid gland is acting up, there's actually thyroid medication that can help you regulate your body temperature. And as you age, and in particular we'll talk about females aging and going through menopause, and sometimes doctors will prescribe thyroid medication if someone is unable to regulate their body temperature the way that they should, so the thyroid can help with that. Alright? Let's see. Next one. We're going to talk about the thymus. So looking at the thymus, produces hormones that help T lymphocytes mature. So we're going to learn more about the immune system. Remember, this unit has 3 components. Homeostasis, which has 6 objectives. The kidneys, which has 9 objectives, and the immune system, where we have 14 objectives. So we'll talk more about the role of the thymus in the maturation of T lymphocytes as a result of hormonal control in the thymus. Okay? But here we are through the head and the top of the chest, right, the neck. Questions about these areas? No? Let's talk liver. The liver is the tissue system that's going to help with blood glucose control. And you may think, wait a minute, I thought the pancreas did that. The pancreas communicates with the liver via hormones secreted into the bloodstream. And the liver can actually convert glucose into a storage molecule so it can be stored long term and utilized later. So it can actually convert glucose back and forth from a stored form to a form that you can use when necessary. It's going to function, the liver has a lot of functions aside from this, but one of the key things in terms of the endocrine system is its role in glucose, blood glucose balance. The next thing on there, the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands are located on the top of the kidneys, and they secrete adrenaline, which in American society we often will call epinephrine, right? So this is like an EpiPen that you can use to prevent anaphylactic shock. If you're allergic to bees, or in my case I'm allergic to shellfish, if I start ingesting shellfish, my throat will actually swell to prevent that shellfish from entering my body system. And if I stab myself with an EpiPen, that epinephrine circulates through my bloodstream and calms that immune reaction down. An allergic reaction is an overreaction of the immune system. And adrenaline actually calms that response down. So it's, the adrenal glands make a lot of hormones other than just adrenaline. They make corticosteroids, which are anti-inflammatories. So what does inflammation refer to? What does that mean, inflammation? Swelling, right? So again, if my throat is swelling shut because I've ingested shellfish, and I take an anti-inflammatory, a corticosteroid, that will cause that inflammation to slow, so I don't have that reaction, right? Yeah?
If adrenaline calms things down, then how does that work with like the fire?
Good question. So last week, there was a YouTube video I showed you about the flight or flight response, right? Where the pupils dilate and the skin pales and hair raises. And so adrenaline has effects on cells all over the body, not just one effect. See, the beauty of a hormone is it's a chemical signal that circulates through your bloodstream and gets received by different cell types and carries out different functions based on the cell type. Other questions? Yeah?
What would happen if you stick yourself with an EpiPen and have
That's a good question. So to repeat his question, what would happen if you injected yourself with adrenaline, but you weren't having an allergic reaction? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure. Let's not do that and find out. But I would encourage you, actually, you guys should have laptops out to take notes. Take the time to Google that, figure that out, see what you can find. Send it to me so I can know. All right? Yeah?
Actually, my dad did that as a doctor, and someone was having an allergic reaction, and the EpiPen broke and shot him in his head, and it didn't really do anything.
Didn't really do anything to him? All right, that's interesting. In case you didn't hear, Cress Dog here said that her dad was administering an EpiPen, and the pen broke, malfunctioned, and stabbed him instead of the person he was treating. But she said he didn't have any ill effects from that. I don't really know the answer to that question. I'm not going to make something up. I would say we should look into it, though. Yeah? If you look into it, let me know so that I can have that answer for the next time. Maybe I can find some bonus points for you.
Sweet.
Yeah. All right. So let's look next at the pancreas. Pancreas, we're going to learn about four main things with pancreas. Alpha cells and beta cells in the pancreas, and the hormones that are produced, such as insulin and glucagon. Those hormones communicate with the liver and help regulate your blood sugar. They actually communicate with more than just the liver. They communicate with a lot of body cells, but we're going to go into more detail about that later in this lecture. Let's see. Next, I want to talk about ovaries in females. Ovaries are responsible for a lot of things. We're going to do a reproductive unit study, which is the next 6-week study. But for now, just know that the ovaries are going to secrete mainly estrogen and progesterone, right, which are going to function in the reproductive unit of females. And there's also in here, they've got, in this diagram, the placenta as well. The placenta secretes progesterone as a response to being pregnant. So when the placenta develops, progesterone is the main hormone to sustain pregnancy. We're going to learn about the endometrium of the uterus and how it thickens to actually supply the needed nutrients and support the pregnancy. And we're going to learn in the next unit about the menstrual cycle and the flow of hormones and how they affect female cycles. However, for now, what you need to know is that the placenta secretes progesterone to say, we're pregnant, so don't shed the lining of that uterus. Don't have the endometrium shed, so there's no bleeding, and we have a sustainable pregnancy. Beneath that, we have the last item on our diagram here, which was the testicles. The testicles secrete testosterone, which is going to be the main hormone responsible for secondary sexual characteristics. So there's two types of sexual characteristics. Primary sexual characteristics help you engage in sexual activity or help you have sex. Secondary sexual characteristics help you get sex. So they help you attract a mate. Right? So a secondary sexual characteristic that develops as a result of testosterone being secreted during puberty would be the development of facial hair, armpit hair, muscle definition. These are all things that they don't help you have. Armpit hair doesn't help you have sex. But it does play a role, at least evolutionarily, in attracting a mate, showing that you are a healthy individual worthy of mating. So secondary sexual characteristics help you attract mates, and testosterone is going to be a key hormone involved there. All right? I want to move forward with the presentation. Any questions about that diagram and the major components of the endocrine system? Questions? Okay. This is a practice question from IB, so an actual multiple choice question. How do endocrine glands function when they're involved in homeostasis? What's the correct answer here? A and B both say they release hormones, right? C and D a little bit farther off, right? So we should be able to eliminate a few of these. Let's eliminate one. What can we eliminate? Yeah, we can eliminate C because they're not going to release digestive enzymes. Right? That's not what endocrine glands do. Do they cause positive feedback or do they cause negative feedback? What's more common? Yeah, they're actually going to be responsible for negative feedback that's going to help regulate body systems. So now we're left with, do they secrete hormones directly into the bloodstream, or do they go through ducts? When it comes to homeostasis, most of the time, the hormones are going to directly secrete into the bloodstream. So the correct answer here is A, that practice question. All right, any questions about that? Nope. All right, let's move on. Correct answer A. Moving on to the next objective. State that homeostasis involves maintaining internal environmental limits between in the following systems: blood pH, carbon dioxide concentration, blood glucose, body temperature, and water balance. Let me talk about some of these directly and indirectly. We already learned about blood pH, right? We learned about the formation of carbonic acid, lowering the blood pH, being picked up by sensors in the medulla and the aortic arch, causing your breathing rate to increase in the respiratory unit. Remember talking about that? Silence means you're asleep. Silence means yes. Okay, so you guys remember that. So that one's taken care of. Carbon dioxide concentration is a vital role in that, so we've got those two down. That's not going to be the focus here. We will learn about blood glucose concentration today. We will learn about body temperature today. We will learn about water balance when we talk about kidneys and osmoregulation, starting on Friday and going into next week. So, in terms of this objective, we're going to focus our time today on blood glucose and body temperature. But we know that the generalized pathway of hormone action is that they're received by cells, by receptor proteins in cells, and they go in and they interact with the cell to actually cause a metabolic change and produce different molecules and effects based on the cell type. Right? Okay. So, practice question again. And you can go through some of these. We're a little bit limited by time. I don't want to run longer than 25 minutes for this presentation. So you can go back through this online, you can look through it, and we can talk more after this. Okay. Let's talk about homeostasis and negative feedback. That's our third objective, homeostasis and negative feedback. We learned in our introductory lecture that negative feedback is the product going back and slowing down the cycle, right? So here's a generalized diagram. You get a stimulus that is picked up by sensors, hits a regulatory center like the brain, the hypothalamus. Effector cells like endocrine glands are going to stimulate a response which will return the body system to normal and slow down that process. As an example of this, if your blood pressure rises, you have sensors in the aortic and carotid sinuses that pick up that change, that rise in blood pressure. In the brain, they're regulated by causing the atrial walls to relax so that you lower the pressure in that system. Your blood pressure falls and it slows down this cycle. Let me show you another way of looking at it based on this Prezi together for you. Another way of looking at that is if you have a disturbance, so here we've got time, right? And we have a fixed regulation point, so we want it to be here. If you have a disturbance that elevates, you're going to have receptors note that change, cause an effect that will eventually result in an overshoot, so you actually dip down below that fixed point until you get back to the regulation point. Let's give a specific example of this. If you increase your body temperature, the hypothalamus detects this increase and causes sweating and vasodilation. So effectors are going to respond by causing you to sweat, and by having your arterioles dilate, your skin arterioles, you're actually going to give off heat to your environment, so that you're going to lower your body temperature until you actually get below what you're supposed to be, and the hypothalamus can detect that as well and cause the change to get you back to the fixed point. And someone asked me earlier in a class, well, how fast does this happen? How fast can you regulate your body temperature? It really depends on the situation. Right? If you're locked in a meat freezer for a prolonged period of time, you're going to continually try to get your body temperature elevated. Right? Versus if I say go outside on a cold day, run around the building once and come back in, you're going to have a difference in the timing of that moment. So some key components, and let's look at this practice question for some key components to controlling body temperature. Correct answer here really is? All three. Yeah, that's right. Your blood transfers heat, and by causing dilation and constriction of your skin arterioles, you can regulate that heat on the surface of your skin. If you cause dilation, you're going to get more of that heat transferred to the skin and given off to the environment. If you constrict skin arterioles, then you're going to conserve that heat to the body tissues that need it. Your body hair, of course, also plays a role by causing goosebumps. You have muscle contractions that elevate your body hair and cause an insulated warm layer of air to form around the body. So all three of those are going to play a role in regulating body temperature. So the correct answer is D. Now let's look at our next objective, which is objective 4. We've touched on it briefly, but we didn't really talk much detail about it. So we didn't even touch on shivering yet. So objective 4, talk about body temperature in terms of heat in the blood, the hypothalamus, sweat glands, skin arterioles, and shivering. So here's a diagram to help with that. All right, if the pink box represents our internal body temperature, about 37 degrees Celsius or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. If your body temperature elevates above normal, the brain, the hypothalamus regulates this